Hello, my name's Dave Massy and I'm a technical evangelist on Longhorn, the next version of the Windows Client operating system. And I'm here to talk to you about the Longhorn Community Technical Previews. Now, at the PDC, the Professional Developers Conference last year, we introduced Longhorn and we gave out a very early developer preview of the operating system. We gave this out in order for developers to have a close look at the functionality we're providing in Longhorn and provide us with the feedback we need to improve the process and improve the platform and make it a really great platform for you to build your applications on. So we're continuing this process with a set of Longhorn Community Technical Previews and the first update here. Again, we want your feedback as to how we're doing on the builds and what features you'd like to see in the platform. Now, we think it's very important to understand that Longhorn is not yet in beta. These are very early builds, really focused at developers so that you can evaluate the functionality. As such, you should expect to see some progress in these builds, but also you may see some regressions, as these builds have not been raised to the necessary quality for a full beta. When you look at these builds, you're not going to notice a huge visual difference from the previous builds of Longhorn. We still have a lot of work before we actually turn on the next generation user experience. Developers will also notice that there is no build of Visual Studio available to go along with these bits of Longhorn. However, we do have MS Build included. This is the new build system that is fully included in with the operating system so that developers can be immediately productive. Another important point to note is that we do not recommend this for use as a primary machine connected to the network. So we take security extremely seriously here at Microsoft, and these particular builds still have a lot of work to be done in the area of security, and they have not been subject to a full security audit. Now finally, it's important for us to get the feedback. So I'm offering a link here to the news groups in Longhorn where you can offer feedback and discuss the features. And I'll reiterate this news group link and other useful resources at the end of the presentation. Now, if you attended the PDC last year, this slide may look familiar. It's the Longhorn architecture slide. It's showing the Windows framework, or what we refer to as WinFX. We split this into 4 areas: Fundamentals, Avalon, WinFS, and Indigo. Now first, at the bottom, you'll see Fundamentals. This is a set of base operating system services that we provide developers, and they cover such features as deployment, maintenance and updates of applications, error reporting, configuration management, and so forth. We believe it is really important for us to get the fundamental services for developers correct in this release of Windows, and allow developers to not spend valuable cycles working on issues such as deployment and maintenance, but allow the operating system to take care of this for them. In this update, you'll see some work has been done in stability and performance and infrastructure around these features. We have no specific new development features to call attention to. Then we have the 3 functionality pillars of Longhorn. First of these we'll talk about is Indigo. This is the code name for the communications pillar, allowing developers to reliably and securely communicate. Not necessarily just between a client machine and a server machine, but it could be between 2 client machines or even 2 processors running on the same machine. And having a common way for developers to communicate, we believe, is extremely valuable, so that, again, developers don't have to waste valuable cycles worrying about security and reliability of their communication. Now, in this particular update, the Indigo team, although they've been hard at work, don't have any new bits available for us, but we're looking forward to a significant update in a future release. Then we come to the next pillar, which is WinFS. This is the code name for the data or storage pillar in Longhorn. We believe this pillar is very, very important because it's going to allow both users and developers to quickly find data in the store, but also find related data in the store. And it's when we can find and relate that data that we can start to offer some very exciting new user experiences. Now, the WinFS team has been hard at work, and you should see some improvements in this build around stability and performance of WinFS. The team has also been hard at work on some infrastructure, and we hope to expose some of this new functionality to developers in a future update. Now, this brings me to the final pillar of Longhorn, which is Avalon, the code name for the presentation pillar, a whole new presentation subsystem in Windows to allow us to provide a higher quality and easier to use user interface. Now, the Avalon team has been hard at work as well, and they have some improvements to show around stability and performance in this area. And they've also a set of incremental changes to features that we started to talk about at the PDC last year, where the features have solidified and we've added some improvements. I'm just going to highlight a few of these here. One of the first ones is annotations. The inclusion of the annotation framework actually allows a developer to add the ability for a user to add annotations to their content. And that annotation will then travel with the content. And even if the content is reflowed into, say, a larger window, the annotation will be positioned correctly within that window. Now, you'll see a couple of samples in the SDK that accompanies this update around the annotations framework, and you'll find them in the samples section of the SDK under Annotations Framework. I encourage you to take a look at this, and we hope to see some improvements and expansion of the services in the framework in a future update. Another area is that of controls. You'll see that we've added a label control in this release. We've also done a lot of work around theming so that controls can consistently pick up the theme of the operating system. So buttons will look like buttons that are used throughout the operating system, for example. At the same time, you can override these styles if you want to have your own style of buttons, checkboxes, and controls. Another area is that of layout, where we've added a grid element. This allows us to actually lay things out in a grid with more precise positioning than in the grid panel that is also available, allowing you to position things by both row and column. I encourage you to take a look at that if you're laying out, say, a dialog box and want to get some good positioning of controls within the dialog. Another area where we've done some improvements is data. And one thing to point out there is our ability to actually bind directly between properties of elements. An example of when this might be important or useful is if you've got, say, a slider control, and as the slider moves, you want to adjust the color of another object. By using this direct dynamic property to dynamic property binding, without having any procedural code involved, you can have the values directly bound together, so when the slider moves, the color value changes. Now, a couple of other significant changes we're going to talk about is a change of namespace in Avalon and the addition of 3D support, and we'll do that on the next slide. Now, a change that developers will immediately notice when it comes to Avalon in this new update is that of the namespace change. At the Professional Developers Conference last year, we were using a temporary namespace for Avalon functionality, and that namespace was MS Avalon. We've now moved this over into the main system.windows namespace. So anything that was under the MS Avalon namespace is now under system.windows. So if you have some software that you prototyped on the previous build that we made available, this is probably the first place you should look in order to move your software over to run on this new update. Now then, it brings us to the final area that I'd like to talk about, which is 3D support, possibly one of the most interesting and exciting updates in this release. Now, the idea of 3D support in Avalon is really to bring the capabilities of 3D in within easy reach of developers. Today, 3D is really a very specialized area where you have to go and use the DirectX set of APIs in order to add 3 dimensions to an application. We want to bring these abilities in within easy reach of the average Avalon developer so that you can add some different views and a new dimension to your applications. Now, by adding 3D, with Avalon, you actually get full platform support for things like printing and accessibility. So even if your control is being viewed from a different angle in 3 dimensions, it's still fully accessible. Examples of where this might be useful is, say, in a 3D graph. If you've got a graph and you just want to spin it around and view it from another angle, or maybe zoom in on the graph. Or maybe a different form of navigation of an application, where as you navigate through, you want to swing in different content from further behind the current content. So we're very excited about the advances here in 3 dimensions. And there's another presentation that I encourage you to look at to learn more fully about the capabilities of Avalon 3D. So in summary, this release of Longhorn really shows solid progress from the PDC build we made previously available. And you may see other technical previews as we progress, and we want to continue the dialogue that we have with you, getting your feedback. Strongly encourage you to visit the news groups, and there's a link here to the news groups. And in the news groups, you'll find actual product team members from Microsoft taking part in discussions and answering questions, and we make sure that we read every post in those news groups. Now, a set of other resources I'd really like to point you to. And first of these, possibly the most important central resource, is the MSDN Longhorn Developer Center. You can find that at msdn.microsoft.com/Longhorn. And here you'll find constant updates to the progress we are making on Longhorn, the availability of additional articles, and see how we're progressing. Additionally, there's the SDK for Longhorn for WinFX that's available online. You'll find that at longhorn.msdn.microsoft.com. In the SDK, you'll find overviews of technologies, you'll find full reference materials of all the APIs, and you'll actually find some samples as well that you may find useful. And finally, point you at some blogs and something new we call Channel 9. There's lots of blogs out there about Windows, many of them from actual product team members working on Longhorn. I encourage you to take a look at those. One place might be longhornblogs.com. There are also the Microsoft blogs up on MSDN as well. And then there's Channel 9. This is a new effort where we're showing, a number of us have brought together some videoed interviews with different product team members at Microsoft. So it offers you a very unique look at the progress that we're making and the motivations behind some of the features. You'll also find forums up there where you can post and discuss features and offer us feedback again. So I encourage you to visit all these resources and hope to see you up on the news groups and in Channel 9. Thank you very much for watching this presentation. Hope you found it useful, and we look forward to seeing your feedback. Thank you.